Okay. Get it going. Welcome, everyone. Gonna get started here in just one more minute. See people filtering in. All right. Welcome to the Florida Avenue Northwest Northeast Bus Priority Project. My name is Matthew Hendrickson. I am the project manager for this. I want to welcome everyone from all of the ANCs within the project area and also all of the community members from elsewhere across the city. This is an open public meeting. So I hope people across the district are listening and chiming in. With us today from DDOT, we have myself, the Deputy Project Manager, Melanie Marino, our Supervisor, Jamie Carrington in the Bus Priority Program, as well as folks from our Community Engagement Division, Christoph Wassmer and Kelly Zhang Olsen. Thank you guys for being here. And Danica, thank you, Danica, thank you for running the show behind the scenes from our IT department. We'll talk more about how you can kind of chime in. So let's just, I think we're at 6:03. I see we have a good number of folks joining us. So I'm going to get started. We ready to go? All right. So let's talk about WebEx. Here we go. So here is our agenda. Oh, and then I did want to say we are recording this, so I want to make sure that that's going, and this recording will be available on the webpage as well as these slides. So if you miss something or you want to go back, you'll have this as a resource, both the slides and the conversation to follow. So this will be available on our webpage. We're going to drop in the webpage into the chat. So be looking for that. We'll also have a survey specific to this project. And then at the very end, we will have a Title VI survey because we want to know who we're serving and who we're getting feedback from. So just kind of the house rules. The other thing I would like to say is please make yourselves at home. The bathroom is just down the hall to the left. And again, relax. There will be a lot of time for questions, so we're going to kind of get through the presentation so we can hear from you. That is the big thing. But thank you, Raka. So that is obviously the focus of this. Tonight we are going to give some more details about this project, who we are as far as the bus priority program, and present our first concepts. So a little housekeeping out of the way, but that is what is in store for tonight, and very much looking forward to hearing your comments. All right, so this is kind of a platform. I don't know if many of you are familiar with it. A lot of our kind of in-house meetings are within Teams, so sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge for us, but luckily we have some great support, so thank you to our IT team. There is one thing, it's like, if you want to speak, we're going to get to a Q&A at the very end. Everyone is going to be on mute right now. We're going to get to the presentation, and then we're going to answer your questions. You can raise your hand within the WebEx platform, and then we're going to kind of go through whoever we see first. So our team is going to be supporting me and kind of seeing folks as they pop up, but we'll kind of get you in the queue. One thing I do want to ask that I know our friends at ANC 5E have another community meeting at 7 o'clock. So I'm going to try to prioritize those folks at the very beginning to make sure that they have enough time to answer their questions. So I'm going to put the call out to them at that once we start the Q&A, and then we're just going to roll through with all the other questions, but please use that raise hand function. All right. Now we're done with the housekeeping. Okay. Who we are. So at DDOT, we're part of the bus priority program. Our goal is to obviously improve transit throughout the district. Why that's important? Well, one, it just gets you to where you need to go quicker. And then also by doing that, it provides a lot more access to opportunity. It gets you to the grocery store. It gets you to pick up your medication. It gets you and your kids to and from school. So if we can improve that, then we can improve the quality of life throughout the district. And there's and kind of speaking to the entire bus rider or bus riding experience. We have a lot of tools at our disposal to help improve that. We can, as well as improving transit, and we have opportunities to improve pedestrian crossings, bus lanes to reduce congestion, other tools as far as signal priority and queue jumps to kind of keep our buses moving. Tonight we're going to be talking about Florida Avenue. This corridor is just over a mile long from 9th Street Northwest to 1st Street Northeast. But this is one project as part of a larger vision that we have at the city to improve transit. And this is just one of 51 projects that we've already identified to improve the transit experience here in DC. Why is that important? There's a lot of great values behind that. Spending less time commuting, spending less time waiting for the bus means you get to spend more time with family and friends, walking your dog, hanging out. It means you can get to more places, reach more destinations, including jobs, as well as we have the opportunity for emergency vehicles to access that to keep our city safe. These are the goals that we have behind the program. I kind of talked to that as far as increasing bus speeds and reliability, making things safer, especially for people who walk and bike, who may be more vulnerable on the roadway. And then obviously through kind of busy corridors, more kind of streamlining our pickup and drop off, as well as kind of delivery and access to businesses. Here you see the corridor lined out through that just over 1 mile for our Florida Avenue Bus Priority Project. There are several other projects that are happening around this corridor that you should be aware of and that will be intersecting with this project. One, as you look to the top left of your screen, there are 2 DDOT projects between 9th Street Northwest and 18th Street Northwest. One is another bus priority project where we've already presented concepts to the public. We are also the same team for this project as well as that. And so we're trying to sync up those 2 projects as we go forward through design. There's also another U Street streetscape that will be from 18th to 14th. And we're also coordinating with our team internally, but those projects are on different timelines. So I just want folks to be aware of that. That will come up in the next couple of slides as we're looking at this, because we're looking at all of the bus stops through this Florida Ave corridor that will then overlap with the U Street bus priority projects. Because if we're moving bus stops, it's kind of like dominoes. We want to have the right distance and placement between those stops. And that means we have to be looking at either side of this corridor to make sure that we have a good balance for our transit stop locations. To the far right, bottom right, is another bus priority project that we're going to see that will extend further north or southeast. But we're not looking at that yet. That's still a couple years out. So I just want to make sure that there's something coming, but we're really focusing in on that kind of U Street and Florida Ave corridors at this time. Now, 2 and 3 are 2 really big projects that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. They are going to construction soon or are in construction. So that includes our S Street revitalization, and the Florida Ave Northeast intersection project that has kicked off the reconstruction of Dave Thomas Circle. These are, again, in construction or going to be constructed, but they will be completed before we begin this project. So when I say that, I want you to know that we've incorporated those future designs into what you're going to be seeing tonight. So the S Street revitalization at New Jersey and around Rhode Island, we're incorporating that future design into the slides that you're going to see tonight. Same thing at Florida Avenue. the entire reconstruction, what that's going to look like when it is finished. It will be, that is what is presented here. And then we also have the links to those web pages. And for more background, you can see those designs up close in additional detail. But what is on the streets today is not what you will see tonight is what will be built in the future. So we're planning around those projects and in coordination with them. All right, let's keep it going. Through the Florida Ave bus corridor, we serve 3 bus routes, the 90s, 90, 92, 96. When all of those kind of overlap in this corridor, we have nearly 15,000 riders per day, the majority of whom are people of color and self-identify as low income, which means that they're in a household that makes less than $30,000 a year. So that is who we're serving, and we're serving a lot of people. This is one of the highest ridership corridors within the district, and we need to make it better because we have a lot of challenges around on-time performance as well as bus speeds. That's right, what you're seeing is true. The average bus speed through this corridor is 6.7 miles per hour. However, we have several different congestion pinch points, particularly at 9th Street, and this is the PM peak times. The red in this map means that our buses are going 4 to 7 miles per hour during the PM peak. The black is under 4 miles per hour. We have, again, a lot of this is lit up in red, and so we're looking to address those intersections, some of which will be dealt with other projects like the Dave Thomas Circle reconstruction, but others we're trying to help, again, help complement some of these other projects. But you can see the delay is severe, as well as our on-time performance. We are not making the grade, so we are below our own standards. Besides transit unreliability, we also have a lot of safety issues to deal with. There are over 743 total crashes in a 5-year period. We had 2 fatal crashes and 199 injuries, where 12 were severe. I would also say, again, for those that are the most vulnerable, people walking and biking, we've just been on several walks with community members, and just it's just for folks crossing the street, really it's a challenge, and we've heard that from you all. And that's why this corridor is on the city's high injury network. It's also the tier 1, which is the highest tier and number 4 overall within the city. So we know that there is safety is a huge issue and challenge to this corridor. And speaking of hearing from you, we have walked the streets. We've knocked on doors. We've posted flyers at bus stops and distributed flyers to all residences and businesses. We did 3 community walks for a road safety audit with community members to highlight particular locations and areas of interest and areas of need. We also had an online map for this road safety audit, which is facilitated through Federal Highway and our Vision Zero team. We had 116 responses on a comment map that pinpointed particular locations. And then we have had our kickoff presentation in May and had several resolutions passed from ANCs and from the council people for this district. Councilmember Parker, just want to say thank you all for your support and desire to see these conditions improved, as well as having bus lanes and bus priority be incorporated into this project. We also had comments through our website, and you guys were emailing us, so thank you again. And what we heard is kind of what we're seeing out on the streets. Safety is a major concern. We heard a lot, especially for people crossing the street, for people walking. Huge demand for bus lanes. Over half of the respondents, half of you told us you specifically wanted to see bus lanes on Florida Avenue. We know the challenges of buses being unreliable and delayed, and we want to see more safety for everyone, and that just speeding and reckless driving was a major issue. And you also told us to go big. and to dream big. I like that. So play all your design cards. So thank you for that encouragement. Again, here is kind of where we've had some of our biggest kind of congestion issues. And then just kind of the typical cross section. It does fluctuate through this corridor, but the majority of the corridor right now is 2 lanes in either direction. There isn't parking protected. There isn't parking lanes like we have on U Street. It's just a much more limited right-of-way space to deal with, and so that's definitely a factor. And so how can we achieve our goals? First, major demand for bus lanes that helps us improve our transit reliability. It's also available for emergency vehicles, but this is dedicated space for buses to move, and that's why you see this red paint, and you see it across the district. Curb extensions for easier boarding. It allows our buses, instead of having to pull all the way into the curb, it allows them to just stop where the curb comes to them. It just makes it easier for them to access that space and not have to worry about people driving up around them or jockeying for a position. And then also kind of merging back into traffic where a lot of cars just don't allow them to come back in. So it also is just a much safer, proven safety improvement and the bus drivers love it because of that. And then another piece that we'll be looking at quite a bit here today is bus stop balancing or relocation, moving our bus stops to the far side of the intersection so they're not getting caught through multiple light cycles, as well as kind of an improvement of safety there. And then not stopping at every single block because that's certainly what we have in a lot of this corridor. Other safety interventions and tools that we're looking to use through this project, kind of a median and island kind of pedestrian refuge that helps not only reduce speeds, it creates kind of a space for people to wait and a shorter distance for people to cross as they're crossing intersections. The centerline hardening that you see here in the middle, as well as at the kind of reducing left turn conflicts. And again, kind of changing the roadway so that folks aren't, one slowing it down, and then kind of picking up speed to make kind of those freer turns, really kind of slowing those turns down, and then increasing the visibility for people that are walking across the street so people driving can see them. And that's exactly what we'll see too with the intersection daylighting. We all kind of know when there's a bunch of cars parked really close to the end of the curb at the intersection, and you're trying to, if you're walking across or if you're driving, you can't see if there's someone coming. Improving that daylighting is what we call it. But it just, overall, these things increase the visibility for people that are walking. And so you as a driver can see more as well. Okay. This is, again, the corridor. What we have a couple of different kind of concepts in certain areas. Where you see this red, we only have one concept that we're sharing with you. Whereas in the kind of blue sections, which are 2 and 4, we're going to be looking at 2 different alternatives. And that for the ones that are in red, you're going to see bus lanes in both directions. So that's pretty consistent. So those sections that are odd numbers, 1, 3, and 5, we're just going to be looking at bus lanes in both directions. This is where we're seeing the most issues with bus delay, as well as kind of safety issues at these key intersections. And so we've kind of just have this preferred concept. In the sections in 2 and 4, it's kind of a balance between having some more flexibility, but we heard from WMATA and we heard from our bus drivers that say it's really the westbound kind of north direction for our buses was really the critical need rather than the eastbound. And so if we had a choice, again, 2 bus lanes in either direction is going to be one of those choices. We're using that second alternative to be the westbound lane. but we'll take a look at that. I will say all proposed bus lanes within these different concepts, in these different sections, are all going to be full-time, 24/7. And it also aligns with WMATA's plans for the Better Bus Network redesign, where the 90s buses will also be operating 24/7 in the future. So that's exciting news, and we want to be aligned with them to provide 24/7 service. So that's really exciting.
Hey, Matt, jumping in real quick. We have a quick question from the audience about the previous slide about flex posts. Someone just wanted to know if the flex post can ever be replaced with something more durable like concrete to prevent when they get flattened.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. That's a great question. Yes, it is possible, and we kind of call these kind of tactical interventions. But yes, it certainly can be, and you can kind of upgrade those facilities over time. But obviously, that takes a lot more resources, and so one, we want to be able to address these safety issues in the short term, and then also be able to have be prepared to build something more permanent as the need arises when those resources can become more available. But that also takes a little bit more planning and budgeting. But we definitely feel the urgency to be able to, do something more quickly. And so I definitely appreciate that question and understand that need. And then I'm going to just keep it going, and I appreciate that because it sounds like my volume is coming through. So so you guys are hearing me. So right now it just feels like talking to the void, but people are listening, which is nice. Keep the questions coming, and we'll get to them at the end. So I think I got. We're going to be going through each of these sections, 1 through 5. Some of these sections have more than one slide. And so I just want you guys to be able to stick with me as we go through this. And then we'll be looking at each of these different concepts on a block by block basis, essentially. All right, here is our first concept. Our scope, again, is from 9th Street Northwest to 1st Street Northeast, all the way past New York Avenue. I do want to say that, again, there are projects that are overlapping. And we are in consideration with what is happening with the bus priority project on U Street. And so this is kind of an expanded scope that we're looking at to make sure that we have a balance. But as we move from U Street, what we've proposed there are these offset bus lanes, which you can see in this block between 9th and 8th on that north side, where you have those hatched red lines, maintaining the parking, but then also having both a bus lane as well as 2 travel lanes. Here we have 2 bus lanes proposed in either direction, which would match up with what we're seeing on U Street. On that U Street corridor, we're looking for that next bus stop to be at 10th Street Northwest. There are existing bus stops there, but there's also bus stops on 11th as well as on 9th Street. So there's 3 streets in a row, especially going eastbound, that have a bus stop. That really slows our buses down and is not spaced out according to our standards, where we're looking to have 4 or 5 bus stops per mile. So for 4 bus stops a mile, which is also kind of the DC circulator standard, that's over 1,300 feet. And so a lot of the bus stops that we're seeing, in particular for the westbound direction, are under 700 feet, which is, if you just do the math, it's 2 times as closer than it should be, essentially. So for each of the things that we've made changes to within the existing conditions, which you see below in the lower map, as well as the proposed concepts on top, we've labeled them. And again, we'll just walk through. The other thing I wanted to highlight on this slide was the legend, where you see we'll have a removed stop. Let's see here, and an existing bus stop, remove stop in red, X, an existing bus stop with the blue bus, and then the new bus stop will be the proposed stop of where we're moving that. Oftentimes, that will be from a near side to a far side, just like what we've proposed here at Georgia Avenue going westbound. The other thing to do is orient you guys to these slides. This is kind of a horizontal map. We all know that Florida goes at more of a 45-degree angle, right? And so U Street really is kind of that east-west direction, 9th and Georgia, right? Those are kind of our north-south, and that's why our orientation arrow is kind of at this angle, right? Because we have Florida kind of going straight and going flat in what appears to be kind of an east-west direction. But I just want to remind folks that Florida runs at that kind of 45-degree angle. And so just want to get you oriented. Okay, I think so that will just help you prepare you for what you're seeing. All right, so I think the key thing here in number one is that we're looking at bus stop balancing. We're also looking at U Street to make sure that those stops are aligned. We've coordinated with WMATA and we're kind of looking at, again, there's no perfect distance here, but I think what we're proposing here makes sense. And I definitely want to hear back from you as far as if we're on the right track. The other big piece here is that we have bus lanes running. That's what you see in red. I think you're familiar with that. And then another piece, number 3, where we have this new far side stop. We proposed a curb bump out here on the far side going westbound for Georgia Avenue. All right, I'm going to keep going. All right, here we have 2 concepts between 7th and New Jersey. We have kind of 2 options. The first concept and the first concept in all of these where we have options have bus lanes running in both directions. And all of the 1, 2, 3, all of the numbered areas are going to be consistent in each of these. The main difference is we have 2 bus lanes in both directions on the first concept, only 1 bus lane going in that westbound or northbound direction in that second concept. So the stop placement is the same, and that's what you're seeing with number 1 as well as number 2. Here we have a new element that we talked about earlier within our toolbox, which is the center line hardening, which is not allowing left turns for some of these side streets. You can see that at Borer, you can see that at T Street. So we're just making sure that those side streets, and as well as Fifth Street, if you're coming out of one of those side streets, that you're making a right turn only. And so those centerline hardenings are highlighted with these arrows. And then we have kind of a new proposed eastbound location. So a lot of these are going to be highlighting where we have moved our bus stops. And so, and again, we're the main thing and consistent thing that you're seeing is we're either moving an existing stop to the far side, so just right across the street to improve the safety in bus operations so that our buses aren't getting stuck through multiple light cycles, or we're balancing it out as a whole because we have existing stops. And you can see that at the bottom or at the south side there at 6th Street. We have one at 7th, and then we're just moving that further just to before New Jersey. One quick note on New Jersey, the 96 does make that right turn there. And so by keeping the stop number 4, keeping that stop on the near side of New Jersey, we're able to accommodate all 3 buses before that 96 turns off. So I just wanted folks to be aware of that. Okay, I'm going to run through all of this, and then we're going to go back to, and I can go back to the slides as we go through the question and answer session. So we're going to have 2 slides for this section between New Jersey and First. And again, here's our proposed concepts with 2 bus stops in both directions. We have kind of bus stops moving and rebalancing. What you see in the kind of overlay of this kind of golden overlay is the projects that are going to be in construction or potentially an additional project. So the S Street revitalization project, where here you have the web page for this. This is the future design. Currently, S Street, where we see this kind of giant island, this triangle, S Street goes right through that and connects to Florida. And so that is going to be filled in. And there's also going to be new additional protected bicycle infrastructure on New Jersey, which includes kind of a road diet and other traffic calming and safety elements along S Street. But this is the end of that project, and this intersection will change, and it will change before our project's completion, which is in 2025. And so we had to accommodate that into our design. Another piece that you should be aware of, number 3, this was one option that came out of the LaDroit community, and as far as kind of safety improvements, this is one option of several options that they've asked for, but we've incorporated this into our design as a potential project in the future that could complement this project as well. And so those are kind of future projects or potential projects in the future. The other pieces, again, are safety improvements for the centerline hardening. And then going westbound on Rhode Island, we have no turns, no left turns right now. But by adding this bus lane going westbound or northbound, we have decided to try to keep that traffic and keep that bus moving through, and rather than having cars pull up through or in front of a bus, potential bus, at that intersection, and are proposing to take that westbound to that right turn that would normally occur at Rhode Island today, to route that through 3rd Street. So all westbound right turns would be via 3rd Street, and turning that into a one-way with some additional daylighting, and kind of managing those turns there. So that we can continue to have traffic flowing through both Florida going westbound. Okay, I'm going to keep going. And again, this is bus lanes in both directions that we're proposing. Centerline hardening, the bus stop balancing, moving, having a new stop at 3rd Street, as you can kind of see here, kind of transitioning that slide from 3rd, okay, and here we see it again. So there's that new stop on the left side of your screen, number 2. And again, rebalancing some of these stops. 1st Street, where we had a bicycle fatality, removing one stop for balancing, which we already have a stop there between R Street and 2nd Street, an existing stop in blue. And again, balancing those stops out. And then last, another thing that we've heard from community was safety improvements around 1st Street, as well as the connection of bicycle facilities on R. And so we've added a potential future project with a traffic circle at 1st and R, and included kind of reconfiguring the parking configuration into a back-end angle parking to maintain parking storage and provide that bus lane connection. I'm sorry, bike lane connection. Carla, I see your hand, and I'm going to keep it moving. We're going to get through this, and you'll be, and anyone else from 5E will be the first to go. Okay, so now we're looking at the even section, number 4, 1st Street Northwest through North Capitol. And again, same type of concepts. We have bus lanes running in both directions, as well as the kind of only concept number 2, bus lane running in the westbound direction. I did want to note for these sections that have for concept number 2, where we have the kind of 2 eastbound lanes, we do have some flexibility to provide either a left turn or a right turn lane or pocket, which again can help manage those turns, especially where we have restricted left turns in other places. So we really want to be able to manage that traffic flow, and it's really important for us to do that at signalized intersections, because it will be safer, and it will be, again, really managing that, rather than having people speed up and either, trying to cut through for some of these side streets, especially to avoid oncoming traffic. So that is the thought there. So there's a little bit more flexibility with some of those types of treatments as far as those turn lanes in concept number 2. than you would have in number 1. And then we now are, kind of our typical bus stop balancing. I would say for the bus stop balancing, where we've had kind of an average of 700 feet, we're now getting that to more of that sweet spot of 4 to 5 stops within that mile, and averaging kind of in that over 1,050 feet between those stops, which is about 5 stops per mile. Okay, and then coming up here at North Capitol. It's going to go back. Okay, good. And then we're going to keep this going. As we go south of North Capitol, the roadway now changes where we have an additional travel lane. And so we're going to explore some different treatments now that we're kind of merging from 4 lanes or 2 lanes in each direction to now 5 lanes. Okay, and so in this section, you can see the existing conditions, 3 travel lanes going eastbound and then 2 going westbound. What we're proposing is to add an additional median and or turn lane where there are driveways to provide pedestrian refuge and crossing. And then you'll just see the other, no longer have that center line hardening. We're just adding that the question from earlier about flex posts. This would be concrete, and again, a lot more permanent structure in that median for provide safety for people crossing the street. And another balanced bus stop. You'll see here at P Street, we're going to just transition right into that, where you can see that stop is being moved, that number 1 on the right side of your screen at P Street, where we have a new stop at North Capitol, moving that far side. And then you see this here at P Street, that is now a new proposed stop that's just right across the street. So again, we're just making sure that we're consistent with that stop placement from near side to far side. And then a new overlay wherever you see this overlay, it is a future project or potential project. This is happening right now. You guys have seen it. It's under construction. It's completely changing this intersection around New York Avenue, the connections to First Street with protected bicycle facilities, as well as Eckington Place. And then I just want to say one last thing, kind of the other bus stops that we're looking at would then connect to 2nd Street Northeast, which is south or southeast of New York Avenue, that have access to the metro station. And that is also a part of our consideration for where we're putting our buses. Okay, so that is it for the concepts of what we have proposed for you this evening. I'm sorry I was so lengthy chatting that up, but we're going to go through your comments here in just a second. This is where we're at right now. We've already had our kickoff. This is us presenting the concepts to you. And then after we hear back from you, we're going to have an open comment period here that was going to last about a month. And so please continue to go to our webpage. If you have additional comments, we will be taking notes tonight, and that will be incorporated into our documentation for this project. And then from there, once we finalize those concepts, we'll start the 30% design and then let you guys know about it through our notice of intent. And then again, we'll be coordinating with the other projects that are occurring through this corridor, as well as the U Street corridor, for kind of a seamless kind of bus priority corridor. In our outer years, we'll look to finalize that design in 2024, and which is next year, and then into construction in 2025, which is really exciting. Here is our contact information. That's going to get dropped into the chat, and our project webpage, which should already be there, but we will drop it again. And you can call us as well, 202-671-2376. And lastly, I asked that each of you fill out this Title VI. This is for just to help us know who we're talking to. So we want to know who we're serving. So thank you very much for taking the time. I will just note that what you see the image here on this questionnaire, you have to submit those first 2 questions. And then there are about like 15 to 20 total questions. And so it will only populate a certain amount of questions at a time. So please, when you submit it, you're just submitting it for that section. There are more than 2 questions through the Title VI questionnaire, I promise you. So just continue to go through and click that submit button for each section, and then it'll take you all the way to the end. So I promise you it's more than those first 2 questions. So keep clicking that submit button. So thank you. And then I'm gonna, as I promised our friends in 5E and Carla, that we would start with them through our Q&A. But here, lastly, is all of our contact information. All of this information will be on the project webpage, the slides, as well as our the video for tonight's presentation. And then we will also keep you up to date for any project updates, as well as we have a project-specific survey. After tonight, you want to go back and look through the concepts, take some time and digest, look at the different concepts and the different segments, and then provide your feedback specifically for that through that survey. Or just send us your comments, and now you have our phone number. So give me a call. Thank you very much. This is our team here. Thank you all so much for taking the time. All right, I'm going to keep this up, and then I'm going to pull up our chat where I did see a bunch of questions coming in, but I was not able to keep up with them all. So what I'm going to do here is open it up. I know that we had Carla on the line, and I think I saw her hand up, but I'm going to open it up to 5E because I know they have a conflict here at 7. And we have 15 minutes before 7. So we'll keep going and to answer other questions, but I wanted to help them out. So, excuse me, Danica, can you, I think Carla had her hand raised. Could you allow her first, and then anyone else from 5E, please put in the chat that you're from 5E, and then we'll start taking questions from how they came in order. And I'm going to ask our team to help us with that. So, do we have Carla here on the line? Hello, Carla.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you. It's a little faint.
Okay, good. All right, so the first question I had, because you gave some statistics with regards to the bus speeds
Yes, ma'am.
on Florida Avenue. And, you know, I do take the bus sometimes on Florida Avenue. And for the last 4 years, the lanes have been blocked off by the NEBT project, as well as, you know, Pepco and other projects that have been going on. Every time you turn around, they're digging up Florida Avenue. So what's this? When did you take these statistics? Because you would have surely have slowed down because of all the construction that was going on Florida Avenue.
Yeah, those bus maps are from the speed maps here, and let me pull that up. Those speed maps are from recently, and so that was part of earlier in this year. However, that average 6.7 miles per hour was within our bus priority program analysis, which I believe was in 2019. Jamie, actually, do you remember the date on that?
Yeah, for the data that went into the analysis for the bus priority plan, that would have been 2019 data going in there.
Thank you.
Okay,
And a lot of that, and Carla, just for our analysis too, with the speeds and the ridership, I take a close look at 2019 to 2022 when we first started this, or 2023 or early 2023. Well, I'm sorry, this project started in early 2023, so I had the data from 2022, but kind of that pre and post pandemic is what we were looking at. So 2019 was a good starting point for us to know when a lot of these changes hadn't gone into effect.
Okay, but that was the time where they were doing the Northeast Boundary Tunnel project. All right, so my other question is...
Sure. No, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, we have one lane of traffic that was blocked for almost 3.5 years. Okay, with regards to the 2 bus lanes, 24 hours, is it possible to have that during rush hour only?
You know, it's possible. However, we're not proposing that. What we're proposing is to align with the service that we're going to be seeing expanded and what WMATA is planning to do. The other thing is this is, and not only are these buses running 24/7, but this is a 24/7 corridor. We know that Florida and U Street has a lot of late night businesses, you know, late night activity. It's a busy corridor at all times during the day. And I would also say it's a busy time. Sometimes it's busier later at night. And that's what we see. And if you really look at this map, all times during the day, that transition from Florida and as well as to New Jersey is always congested and always very slow, as well as kind of what you're seeing here at New York Avenue. So those key intersections, Rhode Island, 9th Street, New York, really need kind of that permanent infrastructure. And what we're seeing through, you know, as far as the other traffic volumes, is that other traffic is still able to move through those areas. But again, dedicating that space to buses is more of a 20. We're proposing it be 24/7 because of that.
Okay, I have not heard anything about this circle around First and R Street.
Oh, okay. So yeah, and that is true. That is, thank you. This is kind of something that we heard from community as far as this First Street people speeding.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. There it is. So it's one potential traffic treatment. Right now we have kind of a four-way stop. It's, as you know, I think we were just over there the other weekend, right there at Big Bear Cafe. People don't always stop. And so, again, it's one treatment of many. We have a lot of these different tools in our toolbox. And again, it's one option and configuration that I think we have flexibility. We're not saying this is a done deal or what, and that's kind of why we have this overlay to show that we heard from you. We heard within the safety audit that First Street Northwest was a problem. The data supports that, where we've seen a fatality in the past. And so we need to do something. This would complement our project, but it may not necessarily be a part of this project, or it may be. Again, it's something we're coordinating with our Vision Zero team and with other our internal partners here at DDOT. And it was a configuration to show that we're listening, that we're thinking of solutions, and that we're gonna try to make, again, safety improvements along this corridor.
Okay, since you mentioned New Jersey Avenue, have you done anything to go back to do a review to see how it's working? And if you implement any changes here, how would you go back to see, to make modifications to make improvements to this area? Because we're not being heard with regards to New Jersey Avenue. So once the changes have been made, it's almost like that's it, we're done with it. So we want to know whether or not there are going to be any, if there's any room for improvement and changes moving forward.
No, I hear what you're saying, and again, that's not a project that we're managing, but we're also coming in after that project. And I will say from our perspective, certainly like we're evaluating what we're doing, and then I think we're always flexible to kind of make the changes that are needed to make things better. I will say with the kind of permanent infrastructure that you're going to see through that slip lane that was currently going through S Street in New Jersey. I think the data will definitely support that being an improvement, as well as the kind of congestion improvements, because it's, again, it's just much needed. And I think we'll continue to evaluate it before and after. But I certainly, you know, looking at the plans and what we're showing here within this overlay, I think the safety issue will be really improved because you just have a lot better crossings. You have additional crosswalks, you have shorter crossings, you have the kind of additional protected infrastructure. as well as the kind of traffic calming that you're seeing, with, I think, mitigating those kind of traffic impacts. And then we'll be coming in after, so we'll have a really good, that will help inform our project, and what we'll need to be able to do to continue to complement that.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I have another meeting, so I cannot stay, but you will hear from me.
Oh,
Thank you very
I look
much.
forward to it. Thank you, Carla. And I'm glad that we were able to get you in here. Is there anyone here from 5E that has that same conflict and is going to be meeting? Can we hear from them? Did we get anything specific in the chat related to people from 5E? I think I asked that before we, so
Yeah, I see Huma Imtiaz, ANC Commissioner for 5E04 in the queue.
okay. Could we have Huma? Am I saying that correctly? Sorry, I'm trying to juggle some screens here, so I apologize. Anika, could we get her? Hey, Huma. Okay, are you here? Are you still here? If so, can we get her? I'm not seeing that she is. Wait, no, here we go.
I think so. I think she has her hand raised. If we could get her.
Yeah, I see it. Danica, can we help that? For some reason, I'm not able to get her off mute.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Thanks. Okay, Huma, it's all yours.
Hi, can folks hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thanks. Thanks again. This is a great presentation and really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this. I just wanted to echo what I put in the chat already and what some other folks have said. When we did the walkthrough on Florida Avenue, especially between sort of where Rhode Island and Florida meet, all the way up to what was formerly Dave Thomas Circle, pedestrian safety is just non-existent. So, for folks to get to the bus, and I say this as someone myself who had to cross after our safety walk on an unlit, pedestrian walkway and had to have someone physically stop traffic for me. I just really want to echo that it is really hard for residents to actually make it to bus stops, especially on that intersection where cars go by at a really high speed. So we'd really encourage DDOT to think about hardening safety measures and implementing an additional signal, even on Florida Avenue at that stretch, because we know that cars do not stop at hawk signals, even though they've been there for years, even though there are signs up. So just really would like to echo the concerns that folks have raised about safety in crossing Florida Avenue.
Thank you. Yeah, that sharing that walk with you was one of the really eye-opening experiences, and I just appreciate you taking that time and sharing that experience. It really was, really heartfelt, and certainly we want to address that through this project. Okay, I think that is it for other 5E folks, unless I am mistaken. And then we can start going through the queue. And it's I do want to be respectful of folks' time. So what I'm going to try to do here is address some of the things in the comments, and then we'll start. Well, actually, let's just go with the hands, and then if there's anything that I missed in the comments, I'm going to ask for folks to jump in with a hand raised. So who
We can
is
help out
first
with
in
the
our
comments
queue?
answering as well. I've been watching them.
Okay. Well, let me just start with some comments, and then we'll go to the next person. So Melanie, can you identify who's next in our queue?
Yeah, I believe it is Adam Elkins.
Okay, Adam, we're going to get to you in a second. I see a plan to begin enforcement of the bus lane blockage in January with a $100 fine. There's been some news that's coming out today. However, I'm just not going to commit to the specific timeline of that, knowing that things are in the works. But I think there will probably be some news story about this. But there's also our ATE, Automated Traffic Enforcement Division. We can follow up with that. And we do have we'll have some updates on the DDOT webpage for that. So that's coming. But I know that for bus zones, we were looking at November 15th, and then bus lanes later on. Again, I still think that's somewhat up in the air. Full-time operating bus lane, does that mean there would never be parking allowed? That is what that means. It would mean that would be a full-time bus lane. That is correct, 24/7. That is correct. Where you see those hashed lines, those are where the solid red is for buses. Where there's an intersection where you can share that lane, that means that hatching is occurring, and you can make your turn. So that is usually what that indicates. So thank you, Peter. I see another question here. Sidewalk extension for Georgia and 7th. Is this accurate? Is this planned to be with posts? That would be a concrete sidewalk extension at Georgia and 7th. I'm seeing comments here where the dashed lines. Okay, that is correct. That's where they would be turning. Thank you for that. And it looks like Melanie, thank you. Commissioner Bishop Henchman, thank you. All right, let's go with Adam, and then we'll get to some more chat questions, and then we'll just try to balance this out to get it to answer all your questions. Adam, let's take it away. Let's get you off mute. Danica, can I? Oh, did that happen? Am I able to do that? I'm clicking. I'm clicking Adam. Adam, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I got you. We're gonna do this one at a time. Adam, thank you. Next time we'll do this in person. All right. So go ahead.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me? Or
We can hear you.
oh,
We can hear
great.
you.
Okay. So first, just thank you so much to you and your team for putting on this presentation. I take the 90s buses all the time, and they definitely are as slow as you're saying they are. So I really appreciate all the work that's being put into this project. Um, I guess the most important thing I wanted to say is for there were the two sections, I want to say 2 and 4, where you were trying to decide between bus lanes going each way and bus lanes only going one way. And I guess my response to that is that sure, the lanes going east are faster than the lanes going west, but only in comparison to those lanes. They're still dreadfully slow compared to buses across the rest of the city and everywhere else. So I just wanted to give some big support to two-way bus lanes for the whole corridor, 24/7 and all of that. The other comment I had was at the start, you stated that two of the project goals were to improve safety for people walking and for people biking. And for this whole project, I don't think I've really seen too many biking improvements. And I bike around the city a lot, and I definitely know that, 24/7 bus lanes are a safer place a lot of time to be biking than, a lane for private cars. And I see that definitely is an improvement, but there's still, I think, quite a bit more space available left on the street. And I guess I'm curious why there weren't actual protected bike lanes or any real bike infrastructure installed as part of this project.
Adam, thank you. Great questions, and appreciate the comments and support for bus lanes in both directions. It sounds like you've been on some pretty slow buses. So yeah, totally understand that. I feel you. I understand. I've been on those 90s myself at Friday rush hour. So they don't move. To your question around bike facilities. So one thing that we're looking at here is that this is part of our bus priority network. This is also part of our bike facility network, which means, again, we have the similar vision of connected bicycle lanes across the city. However, when we kind of spoke with our bike team and we're looking at the constraints of the roadway, especially where we have kind of the majority of the stretch is the 2 lanes in each direction, it would be really hard to kind of fit in and balance both the goals of both programs. And so where we're looking to really support the bike infrastructure and the bike network is one, having connections to parallel routes, and then making sure that we are able to connect, the other kind of aspects of the bike network that run across Florida rather than running them on Florida. And it's important for a couple of reasons. One, Florida can, again, we talked about people walking and the safety issues. It's the same thing as far as people biking on or across Florida. So having the crossings and the intersection treatments to be able to get folks from one protected bike facility to another, whether it's now or in the future, is where we're going to focus our energies for this project. And as you mentioned previously, you can and often feel more comfortable in a bus lane than just driving on the roadway. That's a reality for some of us, where you feel comfortable within that bus lane because there's not coming, there are not as many vehicles coming or as quickly in that bus lane than it would just be in a normal travel lane. However, not everyone feels that way, right? That's not something for someone of all ages and abilities. That's not a safe, or I would say a comfortable place for our children or for our elders. And we want everyone to feel comfortable within that bike network. And so that's something that we've worked out with our bike team. So we've kind of negotiated that and are trying to incorporate those crossings and those parallel routes and complement that rather than on Florida, where not everyone would feel comfortable.
Thank you very much for that response. I appreciate it. I did want to push back a little bit before I turn off the mic on the idea that the bike infrastructure is coming up in conflict with the bus infrastructure. It seems like really there's a third priority too, right? Which is keep two-way car traffic on the street as well. If the street were taken to one way for cars, there would certainly be enough room for protected bike lanes in each direction. So I think it's important that that's mentioned as well. The one last thing I wanted to bring up before I turn off the mic is there was an option on the intersection with Florida and North Capitol to close the slip lane there going northbound, and I just wanted to state my strong support for that. It's very dangerous, especially since the bus stop is going to be maintained within that slip lane island right there.
Understood. Yeah, that's definitely something we're taking a close look at. And maybe outside of this project, maybe on a sooner timeline, but again, I think at this point, we're definitely considering it, as well as other folks in DDOT. So we'll see. And again, as you said, as far as the kind of managing the priorities of kind of all of the roadways needs and all of the city's needs, it's challenging. And so I wouldn't say, we're in conflict with our bike team. I'd say we're trying to help each other and complement each other's vision. And so we've kind of compromised, but I think they also, would prefer to have some more comfortable, low stress routes rather than Florida Avenue as well. So we definitely support that decision. I see a couple questions in the chat around passengers per day and how many car trips in comparison. And then I think something similar as far as travel time between modes. We will be doing a traffic analysis as part of this. And so there is some additional analysis it would take as far as kind of time saved. But I think that that's a metric. But what we would certainly see time savings for our bus riders. And as you said, the bus riders, there are a lot more people on one bus than there would be space for as many people in one traveling car. So those are great points, but there will be more data coming out of this, especially as we advance this into design. So good questions. We don't have all the answers at this point, but that is certainly some further analysis that we can do. Can we have the next? I see Santiago. Is that Melanie? Is that who you have on your list, or am I?
Santiago should be up next.
Okay, we get him off mute, please. Okay, Santiago, you should be good.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation, all your hard work.
Sir.
I would really echo the last speaker's comments about getting those continuous bus lanes in both directions. I think especially the eastbound ones aren't necessarily that speedy all the time too. And I think a really important thing to think about, at least this is anecdotally I've experienced, I have a lot of constituents and neighbors who like to go from sort of the U Street corridor to the Union Market, Nome Eckington area, and they won't take the bus because the bus is always stuck in traffic. Instead they're going to pay like, maybe $12, $13 for an Uber. Some of them might bike. I think it's thinking about not just the current riders, which are very important to think about as well, but like how we can really just bump up that ridership overall and like open up the opportunities by making the bus a more attractive option. Um, I did have and I would also kind of emphasize, I think some maybe mentioned about rush hour bus lanes. People ride the bus all day, and this area of the bus corridor is going to get 24/7 bus service under the subsidized arrangement. So I think it's really important to consider that when we're thinking about it. I did have a question. I knew you were talking a little bit about bike infrastructure with the last person, but so from First Street Northeast to Q Street Northwest, so right past North Capitol, there's more right of way. Like it's a lot wider. What was the thinking about like putting a protected bike lane there versus putting a median? Was like, I'm just curious about like the safety thinking around there, overall.
Yeah, no, great point. And you do, as that kind of southern, I always go southeast, because it's going at this angle. Sometimes it feels like you're going more north or south than it does east or west. So apologies for that, but I was trying to be consistent. But you can see at this kind of southeast end of this corridor, the future project here at Dave Thomas Circle has protected bicycle infrastructure. And we certainly were looking at this, especially around Eckington Place, and just the kind of safety overall, as far as like having this kind of protected bike lane going into, at least on the westbound / northbound side, going into this kind of now transitioning into a bus lane. It really was a compromise when we were looking at one, kind of the future of the bike network, as well as the safety kind of interventions that we heard. I think we got a lot of comments around both walking and biking. But again, we are trying to have those connections for those parallel routes. And again, this is a section where there could be more flexibility because of the right-of-way space, but we prioritized kind of the walking experience, as well as the kind of traffic calming elements that would be provided by that median that you see here. So again, there was, again, there's no, I would say, perfect solution, and we're again balancing those different priorities. I think for the bike network, they really want to kind of prioritize kind of those parallel routes where it would be more comfortable. And then again, let's say we do have a protected bike facility within this area, then where does it go from there, right? And I think kind of what we were looking at, here at North Capitol, or kind of R Street, Q Street. Q and R, I think, were kind of our big kind of connections that we would be looking to access. And again, how we have it here is we definitely looked at some of those things with protected bike lanes, but these are the proposals that kind of rose to the top after reviews with our other teams.
Thank you. And before I drop, I did want to kind of, as if this is kind of the way that kind of DDOT is envisioning it, I would just really encourage you all to try and focus on making those transitions between sort of connecting bike lanes and the bus lanes, like well, I guess you call it like bus bike lane, like as safe as possible. Because when I look at some of those points, I can just envision just a lot of like stress in terms of like as a cyclist making those sort of transitions, even if you ride like I'm thinking about the 14th Street bus bike lanes, and like those are stressful enough at times, but it's a lot more comfortable than I think what it would be like transitioning off of what is that, like Q Street onto Florida Ave, like in the middle there, while there are cars that are also going to be crossing or like something like that. I don't know. It's just a
Yeah.
I'll include more comments, but I appreciate you all trying to find the balance. I'm thinking about those specifically because it might improve the bus, which I think is I really
Yeah.
think is important, but also we want to make sure it's at least a little bit comfortable for bikers too.
Yeah, I think how it operates now, and that Q to across North Cap, we were looking at. There is also a North Cap study happening, and it could, and I think bus lanes were on the table there, as well as some other types of treatments. But when we talked about those different kinds of connections, you can kind of see even we're looking at kind of a bike crossing and kind of adding it here. Right now, people are riding on the sidewalk. So how can we improve that? Is there a widening sidewalk here or widening it on the other side? Those are, I think, things that we're going to work through either within this project or down the line within the North Capitol project. All good points. Thank you, Santiago. I appreciate your comments. Someone did ask about, can you ride your bike in the bus lane? Yes, they are shared. Absolutely can ride your bike in the bus lane. And kind of what we mentioned earlier is it's okay to ride in it. A lot of people feel more comfortable riding there, but it's not for everyone. So we do want to have our bike infrastructure be for everyone. I did see what are the real world traffic benefits of no eastbound bus lane in segment number 2. How slowly do buses travel in this section today? Again, it's kind of the general, and you could kind of speed, which is way under par for our buses because of the congestion. But then we also saw some of the kind of speed map where those pinch points were. And then also I would just say within kind of that option number 2, there are some options where we can incorporate either a right turn lane or a left turn lane to kind of manage some of those turns. So there may be some more flexibility for other types of treatments. And so again, we will be, and then lastly, we will be doing a traffic analysis that will have a lot more detail as we go into the next phase of this project. Okay, I see, I think Jeff has been waiting patiently. Can we have him off mute, please? And then, okay, Jeff, I think you're good. Wait, yep, there we go. Jeff Whitelow, are you with us? Okay, I think got muted again. I'm gonna we'll put Jeff on hold for one more moment. Okay, no, we got Jeff off. Jeff, are you there? It's the caller on the line. Okay, we're gonna come back to Jeff, and let's get Ethan going. Jeff, you may be on mute yourself or something, so check your device. But we'll come back to you. We have Ethan. We'll come back to Jeff, and then we'll do Joe. Go ahead, Ethan. Let's get you off mute. Okay, Ethan, you should be good to go. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yes.
I have you.
Amazing.
Hello.
Okay.
Hey.
Go
ahead. What do you got?
Okay, so all right, I'll try and be fast. Thank you for the presentation. It's great.
Good time.
I have a few small comments, and I largely agree with most of what other folks have suggested. First, at the 7th Street and Georgia Avenue intersection, I have 2 thoughts. First, I strongly support a bulb out, but I'm also thinking about one potential downside of moving the bus stop to the far side of the intersection, and that is transfers to northbound Georgia Avenue buses, because that is it's like a big transfer point. There's a lot of people that are going to be getting off, going westbound, and then going to Georgia Avenue northbound, and the stop on Georgia Avenue northbound isn't exactly right at the intersection. It's over by the hospital, and it's a really big stop. You can tell because there's like 3 shelters there. So I'm not sure what the solution is, but I'm just thinking that a lot of people are going to have to cross Georgia Avenue if you move that, in the evenings, especially if you move that to the other side of the street. Not sure if there's a better solution, but just something I'm thinking about. The other thing
What's the big deal? It's just a transfer to our busiest bus lines in the city. I don't. But yeah, that's why it's such a big stop, right? Because that serves the most people within the city. So
right,
a great point. Yeah, we definitely, we're working with WMATA to make sure that we get these bus stop placements right. I think what we have is proposed, and that we can take a closer look at all these locations. But we've done a lot of work to kind of get that right balance. And as we talked about some of the benefits of moving it from near side to far side. A lot of it is safety and operations. But I think that's a great point as far as making sure we have and are maintaining transfers to our other bus routes, because that is exactly where we see the most boardings and alightings is right there. So great point.
Yeah,
thank you.
That makes sense. And then just on the eastbound side, I just wanted to highlight a great comment from Brian that I just saw, Brian Romanowski, that there is not, you didn't propose a bulb out there, and you've already got a shelter there. and there's not a lot of space. And there's also like this giant vacant CVS parking lot there. So if you could grab some of that space and maybe improve that bus stop, which is always just packed with people, that would be great.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention at New Jersey Avenue, the eastbound stop at 5th is really great. But for the 96 specifically, the westbound, or I guess the northwestbound stop currently is kind of awkward. It's in the triangle. And I know that area you said is going to be sort of redone a bunch, and they're going to add bike lanes and stuff, but that's not actually a huge area. And so I just want to make sure you guys think carefully about how you're going to have a bus stop there and also protected bike lanes there. And if it would be at all possible to maybe move, I know you want to rebalance the stops, but maybe just like a 96 only stop on Florida just after, instead of having one in the middle of the intersection where you have to cross a bunch of streets. That might be better for the 96 because it's a super awkward stop right now. I wanted to just mention, there's been a lot of discussion about bikes, and I bike a lot around here as well. To me, and I understand why you didn't propose adding protected bike lanes to Florida. I mean, there are, as much as I am happy to get fewer cars on the road, it is a major artery. But the Q and R east-west bike lanes, which are, I think, a major alternative, there's a big problem, which is that Q ends at Florida Avenue and R sort of continues, but then there's bits of Sharrow, and North Capitol Street is a big mess. And so so basically, if you're going eastbound on Q in a bike lane to get to the bike route again, you basically have to go up First Street and then turn at that place where you're proposing a roundabout. So I just wanted to sort of articulate that to sort of see what I see as the problem is that there's this gap between Florida Avenue and past North Capitol to get to that Metropolitan Branch Trail. And I just want to make it clear that as you're thinking about redoing all this stuff and redoing that little strip, that to me is the problem.
Understood. Well, yeah, there's a couple of things there. One, totally understand, was writing that last week. And again, I think for us, kind of big picture, and then also working with our bike team, because again, some of that is out of our scope, right? These could be future projects and things that the bike team has planned to realize the protected bike lane network. And so we're not going to be able to solve everything through this project, but we definitely want to complement those plans and into the future, especially for those types of connections. And those are the critical connections through this corridor. So again, I don't have like the perfect solution, but we are definitely going to continue to work on it to make sure that it works. If it doesn't work right now, that it works when we're starting to implement that other bike infrastructure.
I appreciate that, and I'm sorry about rambling on that when it's not
a problem. But I just wanted that to be clear to everyone. And then just one thing on the 96 stop, I think it's just like we want to eliminate confusion and again have those things synced up together. If we have one standalone stop for the 96 throughout the corridor where every other stop is all shared, that would agree with the awkwardness of it, but we definitely don't want to add to that confusion and awkwardness.
That makes sense.
Then go ahead. If you have any, what are your last comments? Because we have a couple other people in the queue, and we're
sorry.
at 7:21. No problem. But go ahead. Let's wrap it up.
Yep. Just wanted to express my support for eastbound 24/7. It's not fast eastbound, and I wanted to express support for closing the slip lane at North Capitol Street, because I just want you to consider that, because you are proposing 2 bus stops, in that triangle, and that could affect things. And that is it.
Well,
Thanks so
those
much.
bus stops are there, so we're just keeping those as is. But
Or,
you're
well,
absolutely right. It's
know.
accessing those bus stops is where it gets tricky. So that already are there. So I totally get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
thank you.
thanks, Ethan. I appreciate those comments. Good stuff. Let's try Jeff one more time, and then we'll go with Joe. So Jeff, let's get him off of mute, and hopefully we can hear you this time. Let me get Jeff off mute here. I thought I had the powers, but okay, Jeff. Jeff, we're not hearing you. Is it maybe a microphone issue? Jeff, I apologize. We're just not hearing you. And so I'm going to ask if you can type into the chat, and if not, email or call, and we will follow up with you. Okay, I apologize, Jeff. I'm sorry, we just can't hear you. So we'll follow up with Jeff. Jeff, send us your contact info, or please contact me directly. We're going to move on to Joe, and then to Karthi J, and then to EEIK. And then I'm just going to ask that folks try to be brief. We're inching up on 7:30, so I want to try to get us out of here and as soon as we can. Okay, Joe, you're ready. Yes, sir. We can hear you, Joe.
Perfect. Well,
Thank
first,
you.
thank you for a very thorough and very good presentation, and for doing it outside of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I know it's extra time for you guys, but it's appreciated.
Happy to be here with all of you.
I just had a question on, how we evaluate the two options, such as the ones you have on the screen there, of the 2 bus lanes versus the 1 bus line. I guess just be thinking about it. It's probably more confusing for drivers to have the lane there sometimes or not there, and not there others. What are others? And I think somebody mentioned already kind of the reduced speed of the bus. Are there other things we should be thinking about when kind of asked to pass judgment on these 2 concepts? Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Joe. Great question, and appreciate your previous comments and support. Yeah, and kind of some of the safety interventions is one, but again, we're still kind of limited within the amount of space that we have, and it's also, like you mentioned, the changes kind of going back and forth as far as lanes merging. Also, the turns themselves. So the left turns is a big one where we have a lot more conflicts, as well as kind of the right turn, potential right turn pockets. So I think more emphasis on those left turns and being able to use that space, because if we're managing those turns, then we also need a place for the cars to go, right? So again, we're kind of balancing those different types of considerations, but yeah, it's really the safety piece, and then kind of what else could we potentially do with that space. But yeah, no, good point. Okay, and then I am looking at some of these other things. I think that there's comments on that we've already answered. And then some other questions around where we've looked at other places. And so, yes, we're definitely like comparing some of these to other case studies across the country, as well as here in DC. And again, some other safety concerns at specific locations. So we're documenting that. Okay, Karthi J. Let's get Karthi J off of mute, and we'll wrap up these last couple of questions. Hey, Karthi J. Who am I speaking with?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's Karthik actually, but I managed
Karthik.
to
Oh, hey, Karthik.
misspell
Yeah,
misspell
no,
my
it's all
name.
good.
Okay.
I should have recognized that. I apologize. Good to
No,
hear
no.
you.
So yeah, so first, thanks for the hard work. It's super supportive. We kind of want to see all of this like yesterday. So yeah, want to put in, so it seems like center running bus lane is not in the cards for this route, but would love to see one actually get done in the city. So want to put that plug in. And the second is, so I'm the chair of the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council. And I think kind of one thing that often gets overlooked is, so folks with disabilities are twice as likely to not own a car or live in zero car households than folks that aren't. So kind of want to underscore, especially in an evacuation context, there's really no plans for folks with disabilities in evacuation, and bus lanes are a big piece of that. And I think like using that and underscoring that point, I think is a really valuable one that doesn't get talked enough about. And the other piece that I want to kind of underscore is has to be 24/7, because if it's not, then we'll get a confusing mess of things that, and that's what we see in Georgia, on Georgia Ave, for example. It's like, it's because it's a, only somewhat functional, I call PLT OAB parking lane that occasionally allows buses, that then it's never a bus lane. It never, even when it's supposed to be a bus lane, it's not a bus lane. So that's something that we really, really need to change. So just wanted to put in that plug, but thanks so much for your hard work and excited to see this happen.
Karthik, thank you. Nice to hear you. Appreciate that. Thank you for those comments. And not just can it be used for evacuation, but just your typical emergency vehicle, which happens a lot more common and is much more needed on a daily basis, I would say. Okay, I have EEIK is our last person, I believe. I think we answered Adam's questions. Eric,
Yes,
Eric.
yes,
Hello,
I just
Eric.
typed it.
Hey.
Yeah. Want to echo what
Glad
everyone
we got
else
that
said.
clarified.
Yeah, for sure. Want to echo what everyone else said. Thanks for all the work putting this together. These look like great concepts. Would love to see them ASAP. I want to express support for the 24/7 options as well as the eastbound lane. And my question is, I'm curious, like how have you all thought about avoiding in kind of the U Street corridor and later down the street in Florida Avenue? How, like, I've seen on 14th Street, bus lanes are great, infrastructure is great. One car, one Uber driver, one DoorDash or hordes of DoorDashers can slow down a bus really quickly. And so, like, even if you have great infrastructure, enforcement kind of has to be a part of this. And so I'm curious, like, would love to hear how you all are thinking about that as far as bus lanes go on this project.
Yeah, well, two things. One, I think the first question was about enforcement. We have some new enforcement coming. It's called Clear Lanes, where we will have cameras on WMATA buses that will be able to document that. It's still getting off the ground, but that could be a game changer. And just even in some of the preliminary warning period that we've had in this rollout, we have started to see some positive results. With that said, knowing that there isn't a perfect solution, we know that, but I think this could really help throughout. So I'm really excited for Clear Lanes, and so I think the council is too, and there are kind of discussions today to try to get this back on track as soon as possible. But I don't have a solid answer for you in that regard. But there's some exciting things coming down the pike. The other piece, as you kind of mentioned, a lot of the late night activity, a lot of the businesses, the climate has changed. I mean, we have a lot more Uber drivers, we have a lot more food delivery and pickup. We have a lot more people using these different options to get around. A lot of that is just because there aren't any good late night options. We certainly want to provide that here with our buses and prioritizing buses for late at night. So that's something that's really important to us, and that's why we are proposing 24/7 lanes, because we know that this is kind of a busy nightlife corridor. And then the last aspect of it is just managing the existing curbside. So a lot of this corridor doesn't have the parking use or kind of the pickup, drop off or food delivery business options that you have on U Street. But in that scenario, we are looking at some one, maintaining that curb space and how we can change that curb space to accommodate those TNCs, the Uber, Lyfts, the cabs, as well as looking at kind of the curb use there for like some temporary zones for their use. So we're looking at some creative options. But yeah, that's what I have on that. So yeah, it's definitely a strong consideration for us. Last plugs, since I see no other hands up, here's how you can contact us. Please fill out the Title VI form so that we know who we're talking to and who we're serving. And then lastly, here's our contact information. This video will be posted on the webpage, as well as please go send us any other comments that you have, and continue to check the website for updates. That is all I have. I don't see
Sorry to interrupt, but I see
Yes.
that Jeff Whitelow is calling in and have his hand up. I guess
Hey,
on his phone.
I do
So maybe give it another shot.
All right, Jeff, let's get one more try. Okay, let's get him off mute. Give us 1 second. Whitelow, I think I was mispronouncing that. I apologize if I was.
Can you hear me by phone?
Jeff, we
Can you hear me by
you.
phone?
We can hear you, sir. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you, yes.
All right, we're in business.
So I was wondering, why were you moving or getting rid of the stop at First and Florida Avenue, the westbound stop there? From your mapping, that's what I thought you were doing.
Yes, sir. Great.
Because I noticed
question.
that that's
Let me
a
pull it
stop that
up.
serves a lot of elderly people.
Yeah.
And it's a convenient stop for many people.
Understood. And so what we're looking at, so again, the kind of eastbound or southbound, we're just moving far side. We did remove this stop. A lot of that is kind of balancing out the system. And so we do have one stop here between R and Second. And then if we just kind of look at the other slide here, we have another bus stop here at the far side of North Capitol. And so what we're asking folks to do is to walk from First up to Second, essentially. So it's kind of within the rest of making the balancing of the other stops. And I was kind of saying, if we move one stop, then we start to move another stop, and then it's like a domino effect. What
How
we
do you
really
pick
are,
the stops that you move, though?
Yeah.
How do you go about picking the stops?
So one, it's our kind of metric as far as our stop distance. What our WMATA and kind of our preferences are to have 4 to 5 stops per mile. Right now, within this 1.1 miles on that westbound side, we have 9 stops. So it's the average bus stop placement is kind of half, or I would say it's twice as close as that it should be for our standards. We're moving it to the stop placement to be about 5 stops throughout this mile. So if we expand our scope as we go to U Street and to Second, we would then have, which would be over that 1.1 mile, we would have 7 stops through that entire corridor. So we would be just over 1,050 feet, which is within kind of the sweet spot of our standards. So it's a slight difference. Some stops are a little bit longer than that. Some stops are a little bit shorter than that. But we just kind of look at where the main transfer points are and where we're seeing the most people get on and off as kind of our guiding points as far as the necessary kind of need those spots, and those actually end up being where our transfer points are. So North Capitol and Georgia and 7th, and then we kind of again work through different stop placements with WMATA and with our team to try to manage those stop placements. So there weren't, again, there's no perfect solution. I would say we've worked through a lot of these different ideas, but we tried to make the stops that were moved or removed that there would be a stop nearby that wasn't as far.
So
that's the thought process.
Are they going to have more buses more frequently then?
So I believe that is proposed in down the line, but then there's also a big question mark of, well, after this kind of next year, what that looks like kind of with the kind of fiscal conditions. So long term, I would just say we're going to have still frequent buses. This is kind of a frequent bus corridor when we have all buses running together. they're running every 6 minutes or less. But part of that is they get bunched up and they're not kind of staying on schedule. We know that that's an issue, and then they, so we're trying to solve that. But yes, this is a high frequent corridor.
Okay. Well, yeah, because that bus stop at First and Florida, the elderly are served by it, school children are served by it. So it's just a stop that has been a high traffic stop for years. It services a lot of people. So we just kind of, I'm just wondering about clumping at the other
Understood.
stops. Would that be a problem?
That's what we're trying to solve. But again, yeah, it's just kind of, we're trying to balance that out. It ends up, you know, through some of these different iterations, just kind of staggering the stops here where we would have a pair, and you can kind of see there would be a pair here at first. But to get that kind of balance, we've kind of, they're a little bit further away as far as going in one direction versus the other. But I think
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
because
we've looked at this
because
quite a
from
bit.
From
Yeah.
the map that you're showing me, I only see one stop going going west on that map that you're showing, that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
screen.
and that's just through here from First here through Third, and then if we kind of go further west or further north, then yeah, we have another stop at Fourth on that far side. So yeah, we tried to get between, you know, we try to find that sweet spot and balance it out.
Okay. All right. Because, yeah, I was just thinking that with routes that are more heavily trafficked, you might want even more stops.
And that's the balancing part that's what we really struggle with. So that is really what we're
Okay.
trying
All
to evaluate, no doubt.
Okay.
But Jeff, thank you for your patience and getting on the line here. And I think a great point as far as
Okay.
kind of prioritizing which stops are moved and kind of relocated. And so definitely appreciate you sticking with us to get that question in.
Right. No problem. But we will get to weigh in on this further, right?
So yeah, we're gonna kind of again this is our final concepts. You can absolutely continue to comment on this. Yeah, we're still tweaking this out, and there will be this will go into our 30% design phase. So there's still a lot of design work. So we're not even starting to design it. These are our concepts. So there will be design, and we have all of next year to kind of work a lot of these things out.
Okay. Well, I'll be in contact with you.
I look forward to hearing from you. Yeah, and please hit me up anytime, Jeff. I hope.
Okay.
I don't know if we should have your email or contact information, but if not, shoot me. Hit me up.
Yeah, I
anytime.
will. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, I know someone asked about this traffic circle. We talked about that earlier. This is a potential project. It's not on the books, but it's something that we heard from community as far as traffic calming and other bike connections and other safety improvements through this corridor. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm also going to stop sharing my screen. Here we go. And just want to thank everyone. Have a good evening. And we're going to call it here at 7:40. And everyone take care. Have a great evening. And thank you so much for all your comments. We'll continue to be in touch and provide updates. And thank you all. Have a great evening.